Hey guys, you're watching the Best Practices Show where we take a look at the best business practices from the best dental practices all across the country. And if you have a dental practice, you know how important the phones are. And today, I'm going to show you specifically with the expert on how to create a Rockstar on your telephones with Katherine Eitel Bell. Do not miss this. Do me a favor, grab a pen and hit the share button. We'll see you in a second. Hey guys, welcome back to the Best Practices Show. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all the shares. Thank you for everything. I mean, we're just crazy grateful. Took a little bit of a break last week and now we're back at it. Just having a lot of fun with our friends who are experts, and today is no exception. She is awesome. You don't want to miss this. Have over 16,000 followers, over 250,000 views a week, and over 6,000 of you found us on the audio versions on iTunes. So please do not watch this in your cars. It's crazy. People are sitting there like, I'm watching this while I'm driving. Don't do that, okay? Listen to it. You can listen to it there. So, and we are shooting this live on Facebook. So couple things. As you're watching this during the live feed, if you have questions as we're talking to Katherine, please add them and I'll ask Katherine direct and we'll get the answers straight from the expert. Or if you're watching this after the live feed, continue to add your questions and we'll get you the right answers because we want this to be hugely valuable for you. Now, my guest today, great friend of mine who is not only, she's been a friend, great mentor, great everything. She's also one of our coaches. So as a coaching company, we have a coach too, several of them. Katherine has just been an incredible coach for us and coaches our coaches. So you'll see why here in just a second. And she has created an entire new platform, which we're going to talk about in a second. But for those of you that don't know Katherine, I'll tell you my story. She's just been one of those people that has a great voice. She's got great thinking and how to grow and develop people. And so they do it for their own reasons, which is really, really cool. But Katherine, for those people that don't know you or haven't heard of you, tell us a little bit about your story and who is Katherine Eitel Bell?
Oh, well, Katherine Eitel Belt is one excited girl to be on Facebook Live with you today, Kirk, that's for sure. I come from dentistry. I sort of, quote unquote, grew up in the, started young in my 20s as a dental assistant, moved up to the front office administration area, and then ended up running a pretty busy multi-doctor practice, marketing and just practice administrator positions. And loved it. I loved dentistry and was a consultant for a couple of decades until 2 years ago. I decided to slice out of consulting the piece I love the best, which is coaching on communication skills. So that's what we focus on. My company, Lion Speak, focuses on that. And so we help dental offices and other healthcare and veterinary offices really get their customer service communications down right, their communications with each other as a team really right, and that whole self-leadership mindset that we talked about last time. And then I also have a third arm that we help other speakers and trainers become better at what they do, which is, of course, how we work with you. So that's what we do, and that's sort of my short story.
That's awesome, and she has an amazing new website. So if you haven't seen it, you got to check it out. And what's the address?
It's lionspeak.net. So lionspeak.net. We're pretty proud of it. Brand new, just launched it last week. So very excited. And we feel like it really explains and shows what we do. We've got some more video coming for the site soon, and we've actually got some cool tools that'll be probably hitting by next week or the week after for the subject we're going to talk about today. So I'll mention those as we're going along.
That's awesome. And the subject that we are going to talk about today is one of the most important elements in a dental practice is the phone. The phone is alive and well. I would say it's the single most important piece of equipment you'll ever purchase as a dentist. And this is a hugely important topic. And today you're going to show us the keys to growing a telephone rock star. And you're truly going to grow them in this. Now, Katherine, tell us why this is such an important topic.
Well, you just said it. It's the most important piece of equipment they have. I mean, we don't get to use the other pieces of equipment if we don't get bodies through our door, if we don't get patients in the door. So it's interesting because I find that, and not just in dentistry, but in a lot of small businesses, we just put people up there, basically monitoring and opening and sometimes closing and sometimes slamming the door for new business to come in, and without training.
Right.
And so I really want to change that in the industry. I think it's unfair to put people up there in that position that's so critical to the success of the business and not give them, number one, the training that they need and the support that they need to do it really well, but also to give them the coaching along the way. Often we throw them up there and then we don't think they're doing a good job, or business starts to drop off, and they may not be, not intentionally, but it just may be really impacting you in a negative way. And if it does, then all of a sudden we do mystery shopper calls and we test them, and then we see just how bad it is, and now they're sort of in trouble, you know, and they even feel worse about it. And so we're we are on a mission at LineSpeak to change the way people feel, not only about that whole the potential that's available to dental practices with getting this right on the phone, how they feel about training, and how they feel about testing to make sure that everybody's on track. We want to change the way they feel about that, because I think they can feel really positive about it.
Yeah, and you're doing a great job of this. Now, the mystery call shopping thing, there are companies out there that do this, and there's a challenge with mystery call shopping traditionally. Can you just describe that? Because I'm sure if anybody's watching this, they've already had 1, 2, or maybe even 3 mystery call shopping events happen at their office.
Yeah, so there's lots of different approaches to mystery shopper calls, and I can't blame people for being a little shy and a little skittish about this, because I do think it's been mishandled. I think we take a very different approach. We have some competition that will randomly mystery shop offices and then send the audio to the practice. Sometimes that's resulted in people losing their jobs or a lot of hard feelings, or those sometimes get played before lots of people without someone's permission. And it's very humiliating and very embarrassing. And it's not the way to build trust. It's not the way to build confidence. It's not the way to build professionalism. I think there's a much better way. So, Kirk, you and I are speakers and trainers and coaches. And like you said in your opening, we use if we want to be better. If I, as a public speaker, if I want to receive higher and higher honorarium checks because I'm better and better at my craft, if I want to be asked back to venues or asked to better venues, I have to get better. And you can only take yourself so far. So, of course, people who want to advance their career usually will invest in coaching. And I do, and my speaking coach insists that I record my speaking engagements routinely, and that I watch them, do a critique of myself. He watches them, does a critique, and then we come together. I'm going to tell you, Kirk, I will get a DVD of my speech. It will sit on the corner of my desk for weeks before I get up the nerve to watch that thing. I hate watching myself. I hate it. I absolutely push it off till the very last minute. None of us like to watch ourselves. None of us like to listen to ourselves. We're so critical. But I will say that it is hands down been the best tool I've ever had to advance my speaking career and accelerate it. And so the same can be true for administrators. If an administrator is listening to this, or if you manage administrators, I would so encourage you to begin to think differently about the idea of testing. If someone's testing for the purpose of helping you improve, and you do improve, you're on track to heighten your career, hopefully raise your salary, to be promoted into better and better positions. That's how it happens. I bet you could, Kirk, right now, I bet you could probably name a dozen practices that are clients, and I know I could, that would pay top dollar, and I'm talking top dollar, if we could show them we had a hire for their front office receptionist position, their administrator that was going to be on the phone, and we could lay down in the interview 5 or 6 really good mystery shopper calls. If we could say, we're not going to have you trust us that this person's good on the phone. We're going to let you listen to how good they are, because she's done mystery shopper calls for quite some time. Listen to how good she is. Here's the reports from an independent person. Imagine what that would do for someone's career. We have clients right now that are looking for people that have been scoring well on their mystery shopper calls. And so we want it to be something that the industry embraces. We take a different approach. We never ever record someone without their written permission, ever. So, and typically we don't do it unless they've already first been trained. So we train them first, or help them get the training. And then when they're ready, when we can mutually agree, okay, we're ready to test this, then we say, here's what we're going to do. You give us permission, and in the next 30 days, you'll be mystery shopped, and we'll record it. You'll get the recording, so will your boss. And that's it. Now, you guys will decide from there who you want to share it with, if anyone. If you do want to play it at a team meeting, if you do want to talk about it, that'll be up to you, but it won't come from us. But what will come from us is a report and suggestions, usually the top 3 suggestions for how they can improve and what they should focus on next. We have lots and lots of clients that are on a program with us where they do one mystery shopper call every month with a report, or sometimes if it's a large enough, if there's lots of locations and there's a call center, we do it slightly differently. But we find a way that they get regular, predictable reports so that we can watch the progress of someone getting better. And they develop a relationship with our trainers, and they really feel like they have a coach in their corner, which is really great. And someone that's pushing them to be better, but in a positive way, in a way that's encouraging. And so we take a different approach. Although I'll tell you a cute story. Sometimes people want to share their mystery shopper call. It's kind of surprising. One time we did a call, and the gal, you could tell in the beginning of the call she was distracted, and it felt like it was going to be a terrible call, but all of a sudden she just got her footing, and it was like she turned it on. And so later we asked her about it. We could hear all this commotion going on around in the phone call. We could hear all this noise, and she said, "Did you hear that noise?" And I said, "We did. We heard all this conversation, and it almost sounded like kind of, raised voices or some, a lot of confusion." And she said, "That was because the phone rang. I answered the phone, but I had there were dental assistants and hygienists and doctors all up at the front desk, patients. They were all talking over the top of me, and someone was sitting in my chair. I'm trying to manage this phone call, trying to get my form, my guide in front of me to use it to guide my call. And you could tell when she got him out of her chair and sat down and got her focus, you could tell it. And she said, I would like my team to hear that. I would like my team to hear what it sounds like to a patient when they're all up there around me, sitting in my chair, talking noisily, having all these big conversations. It's not as easy as they think to concentrate on a new patient phone call. And I think playing that call for the team really helped her to get her team support that, when she's on those calls, they need to give her quiet. They need to give her some space to concentrate and really be terrific on those calls. So sometimes they surprise me and they want to play it for their team. But most of the time, people want a chance to get better and show what they can do. And We're all about that.
That's awesome. Now we're going to go into some of the details and how this all works. But the one thing, if you're a dentist watching this, you may say, well, I don't want to invest in this. But truly, depending on who you listen to, the statistics say this: 1/3 of all telephone calls from a new patient are actually converted to an appointment in a dental office. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, we get them all, but nobody gets them all. What if your team member is average or maybe even a little bit above average, and they're, 33%, 35% or whatsoever. What if you took them to 55%? How much would that change your schedule in a week? My guess, dramatically. You're talking about several more new patients per month without working any harder. And it's really important to grow them as a rock star. Now, I want to go into this because you're not a fan of scripting, like the big, and I love how you think about this because I agree with you. There's a difference. You said framework. Can you describe the difference between scripting and framework?
Absolutely. So, I want to say I know where scripting came from. We're not big fans of it in its traditional sense. In its traditional sense, we're at LionSpeak, we're really dedicated to what we call unscripted excellence. Unscripted excellence. And but here's where scripting came from. Scripting came from the need or the desire to get consistency across all personnel that might be answering the phone or doing anything in a dental practice. And also as we've seen group practices grow over the last 5 to 10 years, sometimes what we need is consistency across locations. Right. So in an effort to get consistency, I think we erroneously believe now, because we've been told this, that the only way you can get consistency is a set of scripts that everyone says it the same way. And if everyone did, you would get consistency. You would. Mm-hmm. Here's what I think you lose in the process. What you lose in the process is those aren't the authentic words. And they sometimes aren't the exact right words for that particular patient or the tone of that conversation or whatever is showing up in the space. Right. So what we're trying to create and really having some fun and some success with it is creating people who think on their feet, who can be authentically who they are, because that comes through on the phone and in any conversation. Kirk, we could have scripted our interview. You could have written out everything. I could have written out everything. I used to do that. And we could be reading off of teleprompters. And I promise you, no matter how good we got at that, your audiences would know. They would know that this was not just a genuine conversation that we're having. And so, are you and I prepared? We are. Did we talk about the framework for this interview? We did. Yep. But we didn't script every word. And so that's what we help. What we say to teams we want higher levels of consistency so that you all do well on your test, on your mystery shopper review, but we want you to have the freedom within a framework, within a protocol that you will all agree to, that you will all memorize. And within that, we can all count on one another to stay the course in the protocol. We allow them to have a little hand in writing that. We give them some great guidance. But once that's agreed to and set in place in the practice, then that becomes the standard. And so when we then test it with the mystery shopper calls, we're testing against that protocol, against that framework. And we're hoping that big personalities come out in that and that the patients feel like it was well directed, it was well controlled, that they were guided to the right solutions, and they feel like they have a connection with a real human being on the other end of the line. So for us, it's actually, I almost think scripting is the lazy way out, right? Mm-hmm. It's like I don't have to think, but we want thinkers on that. We want people who actually are present with this human being on the other end of the line and knows how to guide them and land that call. And by the way, Kirk, this doesn't mean it's longer. It doesn't necessarily mean it's longer. Matter of fact, I think it can be shorter. It just needs to be true to the protocol. So it doesn't take extra words. It's just there's more freedom within that framework. Just to be, if the patient's a D personality, right? And they say, well, I'm on the jetway getting on a plane. I don't have much time. I want an appointment. I don't have insurance. I'm paying cash. I just need an appointment when I get back because here's what's happened. Mm-hmm. Well, in the protocol, they can just go right to step number 3. They
Right.
just catapult over 1 and 2, and they go right to 3 because they know what step 3 is. They know this patient is in a hurry. This patient's very direct, so I'm going to mirror that patient's personality. I'm going to give them a mirror right back. I'm going to pick up my pace. I'm going to be direct. We're going to get them scheduled, and we're out of here.
Yeah.
But on the next caller, that is, scared of the dentist, nervous even to pick up the phone and call, is got lots and lots of concerns and trepidation. If you talk the same way to that person as you did the phone call before, it's not going to work.
Right.
So that's what scripting sort of boxes you in and treats everybody like they're one individual. And of course, we know they're not. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And we were talking about telephone Rockstar. The key here, you mentioned the word think. I've found this in over 20 years of experience. My favorite are the ones that really can think when they're on the phone.
Yeah.
And then the second piece you're pointing to is they're engaged. They're really engaged with the patient. They can help the patient put the pieces of the puzzle together, and they're confident when they're doing that. Now, if you're watching this, you also know when you're talking to somebody on the phone and they're disengaged and they're using a script and they don't really care about the job. You're like, seriously, give me somebody who is good at what they do. And then your whole demeanor, love for the business changes when somebody's totally engaged with you. So how do we do this, Katherine, that we grow a rock star, on the telephones? Okay. Take us through the process. Where do you start? Obviously, you want to start somewhere with some type of a baseline, right? And then how do we grow from there?
Yeah, well, we teach a 4-step process that is super easy to remember. So it's not hard for them to remember. There's lots of layers to this. And as we've worked with teams longer and longer, we get into the finer and finer details of all the nuances that you could do. But even if they're just a beginner, and it's so funny because people say, well, we're pretty, like you said earlier, we're pretty good. We convert most of our patients. And I say, well, then you should feel really good about doing a mystery shopper call to celebrate and, just to celebrate how fantastic. But of course, we've never done one where we couldn't find a couple of pretty significant places where they could improve. And it's just wonderful to hear that. So it's an interesting, it's always interesting to us. Sometimes we'll have a doctor, an owner, or manager say to us, well, why? I don't want my people to know. I don't want them to sign the form because I don't want them to know in advance that they're going to get this, because then they'll be on their best behavior and they won't do what they really do. Right. And I say to them, let me assure you, after probably 15 years of doing these calls, about 14 years of doing these calls, we have never done a mystery shopper call that we could not find some significant places that could use some improvement and been able to, to give them some advice. And so you have to assume they knew the call was coming. They were giving it their best. Wouldn't you, Kirk, want your people for the next month that answer your telephone to think that every call coming the next month might be the mystery shopper call? That's a month of people that are on their game, right?
Right.
How cool is that? So that's a big Benny. So they don't have anything to worry about just because their people know it's coming. Bring it on, right? Show me your best for a month. One of those is going to be a mystery shopper call. And I assure you, even on their best behavior, on their best performance, we'll still be able, probably, most likely, to find some things that we can help them improve on. So it's just part of how it works. So the 4-step process we want to make easy enough for beginners, but complex enough for people that come in scoring pretty high. So we wanted to have some depth of complexity so those people go, ooh, I'm really good with the basics, but I really love that nuance on that insurance question or on that shopper, or those more challenging calls like that, or a very demanding patient, things like that. So here's the 4-step process. Anybody can do it. Let me say that the one thing that won't do it is their computer screen.
Right.
A new patient calls. What the minute you realize it's a new patient, most administrators think, I'm probably going to schedule an appointment. So let me bring up the patient a contact screen so that I can get them in, and then schedule an appointment and put them right into the appointment book. And I'm going to tell you that appointments, that contact screen on your computer, on your practice management software, will lead you wrong every time. In our approach, that screen starts at step number 4. Okay. It's backwards. Because think about it. Probably the first 5 or 6 questions on that screen are name, phone number, email, address, social, birth date, insured's name, all of this basically contact and financial based information. Mm-hmm. And that is where so many people without training start. Right. It's actually should be the end of your process. So for one thing, it doesn't connect you in any way personally to the patient. And it also feels like how it sounds. See, we don't care. It doesn't matter to me what you think you said. What matters to me as a business person is how my clients interpreted or perceived how my staff handles them at Lion Speak. Right? Mm-hmm. What matters to me is what did my clients hear? And what your patients and clients are hearing when your administrators start with that screen and those questions is they hear that all you're concerned about is money. Is right. How am I going to get paid? And it's very cold and it's very disconcerting. So our first step is relationship. And there's 2 ways to build relationship pretty much in any conversation, but certainly on the phone. See, on the phone, you're working with 2 hands tied. Well, I'll say 1 hand tied behind your back. Right. Because you have your voice, you have tone, and you have the word choice. What you don't have is what you and I have. We can see each other today. So we can see when you smile, that great smile. We can see when you lean into the conversation. We can see kind eyes. We can see it. And if we were in person, I could feel a kind, hand on my shoulder or a firm handshake. There's so much that we communicate in body language, in facial expressions that we don't have those tools on the phone. The only tool that we have on the phone, 2 of them, I would say 3. We have the word choice, we have pace, and we have tone. That's it. And that's the only way we can communicate our message. So in the step number 1, building relationship, because they can't see us, we actually have to put things into words that if they walk through our door and we were greeting them, if they walk through our door in person and we were greeting them, we could use all kinds of ways to let them know we're happy they're here. We're welcome to our practice. It's so great to meet you. There's nowhere else I'd rather be than talking to this new patient. We can use all that, but on the phone, we have to actually say the words. Right. So in relationship, you're either going to talk to a patient that has low urgency, in which case you're just going to connect. You're going to find a way to connect with them as a human, not a dollar bill, not an appointment, not an insurance plan. It's a human. And so I always say the great places to connect would be where people work, some conversation around where they work, where they live, or their relationship with who referred them. Right. Those are 3 great places to form connection, assuming that the person has low urgency. Now, if someone has high urgency, high levels of pain, even if they don't have pain, but the veneers popped off and they've got to go to work, it could be a time urgency, it could be a cosmetically based emergency, or high levels of pain. If the urgency level is high and you start talking to them about where they work, there's a disconnect, right? So we teach people, you have to decide really quickly, the non-negotiable is that I'm going to build relationship. The negotiable is, am I going to do that with empathy, which I would do if the urgency is high, show empathy, or am I going to do it with just human connection if the urgency is low? So
Right.
if a patient calls, for example, and says, well, hi, Kirk, I was calling because I just moved to Southern California, to San Diego, and we're needing a dentist for our family. We've been really regular with our dentist before, and my husband actually has some low levels of periodontal disease, so he goes every 3 months. So we don't want to. So we're looking for a dentist. My neighbor next door said you were the man to call, and this was the dentist to call. So I'm calling to just make an appointment, just to kind of get established for my family. All right.
Yeah.
So this is low urgency. They've already opened. It's like they flung the door wide open to say, I just moved to San Diego. We've literally heard, I would have to say, hundreds of calls over 15 years. We've probably heard hundreds where our mystery shopper call said something similar to that, our mystery shopper caller. And the administrator said, well, great. What insurance do you have?
Oh my.
And that's not, and let me say, Kirk, they are not cold-hearted people. These are sweet, kind, wonderful people. But do you see how that sounds?
Right.
Because I can't see you smile. I can't see your pretty face. I can't see any of that. All I heard was, well, who cares? How are we going to get paid? That's what they heard.
Right. And they go into mechanical mode because they've been doing that. And the other thing, too, you said this so brilliantly. When you start on a computer, whether it be in Dentrix or EagleSoft or Open Dental, whatever, and you start filling boxes, it's very much a left brain process. You're just trying to get from one box to the next.
That's
and
right.
You're not really listening. You're just, I got to fill my boxes and I got to get you in. So I love this.
Yeah, I tell them, don't bring up the screen just yet. Just take some notes in these 4 categories. How did you connect? Like, how are we connecting? So in that case, I would say, well, great. Well, welcome to San Diego, and you know what? Welcome to our practice, Kurt. We're so glad to have you. I take the total assumptive approach. This is all going to work out. So let me be the first one to welcome you, by the way. And what brought you to San Diego? And Kirk says, well, I was transferred with my husband. Well, how do you like it so far? I can't beat the weather. That's for sure. Okay, Kirk. So I'm so glad you called. And like I said, welcome. And so I know you want to schedule some appointments for your family, but I was just curious, are you or anyone in your family experiencing any particular discomfort or sensitivity or anything we need to pay special attention to? So now I'm moving into step number 2, which we call discovery. Mm-hmm. And the way you move into discovery is, well, let me step out for just a moment and say, in any conversation, try this at your dinner table with your family, right? Any conversation, the person that's asking the questions is leading the conversation.
Yes.
If you are answering questions because someone else is asking, they're leading the conversation and you are following. You're answering their questions and you go in whatever direction they take you with those questions. Yes?
Right. Yes.
Right? Yes.
Absolutely. I love where you're going with this because you're such a great teacher of this. Also, too, the better the question, the more I think to myself, you really know what you're talking about. Because if you're going to ask me what kind of crown this is, it's just very powerful when you understand what you've just said, the quality and how important this is in the second phase. So keep going. This is great.
Phase. Well, but here's the problem. The problem, or the challenge, I'll say. The challenge is patience. If you imagine control is like a baton in a relay race, and at the beginning of the relay race of this phone call, the patient has the baton, because typically patients start a call with, I was wondering if I could schedule an appointment to get my teeth cleaned, or I wanted to know if you accept my insurance, or how much do you charge for a crown, or I have a toothache. My tooth's been bothering me. I was wondering if I could see the dentist today, or if the dentist could see me today. They're starting with a question, and I train my administrators to imagine that through this imaginary phone line, the patient's holding that thing and they want it. Mm-hmm. And they have to smile and be charming, and all the while they're reaching their hand through the phone line, they're grabbing a hold of that baton, and they're getting control. And when that moment happens was when we said, absolutely, I would love to schedule an appointment for you. You notice I said an appointment, because what I don't want to hear as a patient is no. Right. Who as a potential client wants to hear no out of the box? right?
Yeah.
So I'd like to know if I could get my teeth cleaned. Well, no, we would love to see you. We actually need to do an exam to determine what type of cleaning. So we don't do cleanings right away on the first visit. You need to come in. You see, what the patient hears is blah, blah, blah. No.
Right.
No, you can't have it. No. And then if you say, well, how much is a crown? Well, we'd love to give you that, but we don't actually quote fees over the phone. We would need to see you for an exam first to determine what the patient heard was blah, blah, blah. No fee. Right? Do you see?
Right.
It's a terrible way to start your call. So I'm not saying don't be true. What I'm saying is just don't answer it yet. Just say, you know what? I'd love to schedule an appointment for you. I just want to make sure I schedule the right appointment. So would it be all right if I ask you a few questions?
Yep.
Or, you know what? That's a great question about the price of a crown. I want to make sure that I give you the right information. So would you mind if I ask you a couple of questions first? Every reasonable person is going to say, of course. Yes, of course. So now who has the baton? I've got it. And now from step number 2, now this patient or this administrator steps into controlling and leading this call like a personal leader, like someone who knows how to lead a phone call. And now they can steer, they can ask the questions. And I tell my teams, my administrators, you're asking the questions to determine only 2 things. The first thing you're asking the questions for is to determine what appointment will be the best. And it's often not the one they asked for.
Right.
So let's say I asked for a cleaning. You think, well, I'm probably going to steer them to an exam. But then after talking to me and asking me the right questions, you determine that my urgency is pretty high or that my need is pretty great. And you decide to lead me now in step number 3, which is solutions. When you lead me in solutions, you decide to lead me to a limited exam after talking to me, after listening to me, after asking the right questions. Converse, on the reverse side, someone might say, yeah, I was really wanting to know if I could see the dentist. I have a tooth that's really bothering me. It's super rough to my tongue and my tongue's all, or maybe they just say, I have a tooth that's really bothering me. And you think, oh, this is an emergency. And you go to schedule them into the emergency slot, which messes up our day. And, and we have to do it, but we only want to do it for people who are really in need. Right? Otherwise, we want to put them to a comprehensive exam if we can. And so if someone says, my tooth is bothering me, I was wondering if I could be seen, and you welcome them and greet them, and then you get control and you ask the right questions and you determine, yeah, the tooth's bothering them, but it's only rough to their tongue. There's no pain. There's no sensitivity. I'm going to see if I can upgrade this person to a comprehensive exam, and I'm going to steer them there. So I became really good at listening to what the patient asked me. And in my mind, of course, you would never say this, but in my mind, I would say, if they said, well, I was wondering if I could be, have my tooth looked at, I would think, well, we'll see. Mm-hmm. We'll see. In my mind, I thought, we'll see based on how you answer my next few questions. I want to get my teeth cleaned, or I want to get a checkup. Well, we'll see. It depends on how you answer my next few questions. I don't know where I'm going to lead you, and it won't be based on what you asked for until I confirm that would be appropriate. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
So discovery, we are getting control. We are trying to determine, based on the level of urgency, how many appointments do you offer a new patient? There's about 2, maybe 3. It's either a comp exam, it's a limited exam. Some people have like a low charge, no charge, meet and greet, eval, kind of thing. But for the most part, it's 2 to 3 choices. That's it for a new patient.
Right. I'm going to pause on that because that is so key what you just said. There's not 17 ways to come into your practice. No. Max 3. Or maybe you can make an argument forth with a second opinion type of thing. But really, you as a team, once I know these 4, I'm going to listen, and then all of my solutions are going to be oriented towards one of these 4, right?
Yep. I would say if there was one most common place that people get a low score in the thousands, and I mean thousands of mystery shopper calls we've done over the years, if there is one common place that is the most common low score in a mystery shopper call, it's the transition between 1 and 2, step 1 and 2. They don't get control of the call. they're being asked questions, and sort of, bulleted with these questions from the patient. And it, if you think about it, it makes sense. It makes sense that we think, well, as a customer service person, my job is to answer people's questions. My job is to give them what they're asking for. And in theory, that's right, but we're dealing in healthcare with people who don't know what they're supposed to ask for.
Right.
And so
I just love what you're saying, because really, and could you give some light to this? I've heard, and I've even heard myself, 60% of these phone calls, when you listen to them, the administrator never asks the person to make the appointment, which is, I'm guessing, is probably number 4. But what's the precursor to that is they're answering questions the whole time. I'm waiting for the transition that you've just described, where the person who's the administrator, they're going to take over. They're going to take over by saying, that is a really good question. Now, can I ask you a question? But that never happens.
Yeah. That's right. So you can see why we don't need to script it, but we're listening. Did they connect in some way? Did they build a relationship and connect with this person in some way, or show empathy? I think I skipped over empathy, but it just makes sense, right? If someone's got a toothache, you just simply say, I'm so sorry to hear that. That must have been really hard. Let's get you feeling better quickly. It's like, says, I got you. I heard you. I get this is hard, and I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. And you can't believe, Kirk, how often we hear our mystery shopper calls say, I've got a toothache, and people say, what's your insurance? And I know they're not that cold, but it comes across cold. And so we really have to say the words, I'm so sorry. That sounds awful. Let's see what I can do to get you feeling better here really quickly. And now you're off. It's just really short, but it's important. Right. But that transition from connection to get in the driver's seat, and the way you get in driver's seat is you say, you know what, that's a really good question, or I'd love to do that for you. I just want to make sure that I do it right. So would you mind if I ask you a couple of clarifying questions? And then boom, you're off and running. And now you're trying to decide, are they in pain? Are they not? Is it urgent? Who are we talking about? Is this the patient? You're just trying to figure out, what do I need to know to go, bingo, I've got it. I know exactly the right appointment. So I said you're listening for 2 things. One was which appointment. The other is, what else do they care about that we could sell the practice back to them through that filter? So a hot button, some emotional hot button. So something like money concerns, or they've had bad experiences at the dentist before, or they have some kind of a time crunch coming up for them, or they have some, they read an article about mercury fillings, or there's something that there's something other than this appointment that they care about, and we could, when we step into step number 3, we can sell the practice, we can promote the practice back to the patient in a very targeted way. So I'm listening and asking questions, what's the right appointment, and how else can I position the practice to this person that they will really think they called the right place? Because you could probably list, Kirk, in most practices, a couple dozen things that the practice is really, feels they do well and is proud of. The patient only cares about the 1 or 2 that they care about. They don't want to hear all dozen. They just want to hear, if they care about money, they want to know if you can offer them some kind of assistance with payment plans. Or if they care about, if they've had bad experiences and they're super nervous, then they just want to know, like, how are you different? How would you take care of me differently there? They don't care about hearing about care credit and payment plans at that. That's not their issue. So you're listening for, what am I going to promote? What am I going to drive to reassure them they've called the right place? So that's what we're listening for in 2. In 3 is solutions. And now we're delivering those 2 things. We're delivering the right appointment. We're going to say, you know what, based on what you just told me, Kirk, I've got the perfect appointment. Here's why. And it's called a limited exam, and here's how it works in our practice. And boom, you're often talking about how the appointment works. You offer some times, you get them scheduled, you're all that. And then I say, because there was 2 things I was listening for, appointment and that hot button. And then I say, and Kirk, the other thing I heard you mentioned was that you were just concerned about what the overall cost of all this was going to be, and I really can appreciate that. What I want to tell you is I'm so glad you called us, because we're one of the best practices in our area that at sitting down with people after they know what their treatment is and finding a way to help them afford the care that they need. We have lots and lots of payment plans, all kinds of different ways that we can help you afford the care that you need. So once you get here, my promise to you is we'll figure out what that is. And Joni, our financial coordinator, she's just fantastic. I mean, hardly anybody gets out of here that they haven't found a way to work out a way for them to afford it. So let's just get you with her when we're done, and I'm positive she's going to be able to make it happen for you in a way that's comfortable for both of us.
Gosh, I want to make an appointment with you right now. We aren't even into step number 4 yet. So
But so I'm describing, thank you for saying that. I'm describing all of these, and it seems like it would take a long time. But once you know the steps, these actually go really quickly. I build rapport really quickly, or I show empathy. I get control of the call. I ask the questions I need to find out what appointment and what else do they care about. Once I know that, I move right into step number 3, and I offer the appointment, and I offer I tell my people it's not up to the patient to sell themselves on us. It's up to us to sell them on us. Right? And so you've got to do it. If you want to make the top dog salary as an administrator, be the top dog promoter of a practice. That doesn't mean you're inauthentic. It means you're just who you are in your skin, and you're the champion for this practice, this doctor. And if you aren't really the champion, go get another job. Go find an office that you love. Go find an office you really love, that you can really sincerely, honestly say, you got to come here.
Yeah.
You've got to come here.
Absolutely. Let's give some context to this, because I know what you said is just brilliant. The key here is this. You have to believe that money spent in your office is some of the best money people could ever spend, and that you guys are really good at what you do. If we can start with those 2 things, then the assumptive piece, the selling of this appointment, that's all nature. Because I don't want you to sit here and watch this podcast and go, oh my gosh, now I got to sell these appointments. Let's start with this. Do you believe you're good at what you do? I hope you do. If you're not, then don't do this job. And the second thing is, do you believe in money spent in your office is really a great investment? Just start with those and go, we are damn good at what we do. Yeah. Let's do this, so let's go there. How do I transition from step 3 to step 4?
4 is the easiest of all, I think. Okay. 4 is what they're comfortable with already. So in 4, so let me just say, in 3, you only move to 4 if you scheduled an appointment. If for some reason you don't schedule the appointment, you're kind of done. You're either going to be sending them information, guiding them to the website. You're going to be referring them to someone else. Maybe they're involved in a government subsidy program that you're not, a participant in. So, there's some times where you won't schedule the appointment, but you should be scheduling 90 to 95% of all personal referrals. And we say 50 to 75% of media generated advertising referrals. Okay. If you're not in that range and in those windows, then you've got some training to do. You've got some growing to do. And it's a great opportunity, right? It's just a great opportunity to grow. So step number 4 is assuming they've taken an appointment and they've chosen a time, and you've done that. Now you're going to move into what we call details. And details are a set of questions. Well, let me say they're a set of details that the patient needs from you to get to the appointment on time, to have everything they need with them. And there are also some things you need from the patient to make sure that it goes smoothly. One of the cautions here is you never want to frame this piece of the conversation as it being good for us as a dental office. What I say, the transition is, so we've already scheduled our appointment, and I say, so great. So Kirk, what I'd like to do is just ask you a couple more questions before we get off the phone, just to make sure you have everything you need to get to the appointment easily and to have everything you need when you get here, and a couple of questions that will help us make sure that your visit goes really smoothly. Would that be all right? So now we're off in a different set of questions. Now we get contact information, insurance information. We get we give good directions. We make sure they've gone to the website. We make sure that we're getting, if they're going to fill out forms online on our website or those kinds of things, that we direct them really well there. So there's lots to do, and in the details section of this, but that's not the place to start.
Right.
Yeah.
I love what you just said, as opposed to let us get what we need for your appointment. I need your insurance. I'm going to need this. I'm going to need this. That's completely what you need. Everything is based on the benefit of the patient. At the very least, you should say, if you use the word we, it should say something, would you agree? Like, there's a couple more things that I want to gather so that we are prepared for your visit. Something like that,
Yeah.
That is great.
Anything that puts it in the context of, I'm only keeping you on the phone a few more minutes because I just want everything to go really smoothly and efficiently for you, So, so that's what you're doing. And we have a form. Matter of fact, I'm going to make that available to your listeners today for free. A form that we could not find, an intake form. We call it our VIP intake form. We couldn't find a form on the market that followed the 4 steps.
Right.
So we just developed one. I just did one in Word, Microsoft Word, and it follows the 4 steps. And if your listeners would like it, they can have it. We'll email it to them, and then they can take it and they can customize, the detail section. They can put in the questions they want, or put in the prompts so they don't forget to tell the patient this or whatever. Or they can, they can customize the question section, the discovery questions. But the idea is that it stays in this 4-step process so that it makes it easy for your people to guide the call. We want it to be easy. There's lots of nuances. We have an audio training program that's a couple hours long. It takes a deep dive into these 4 steps, but it also takes those, challenging calls. You have calls where people say, "Are you on my insurance plan?" It's pretty easy when you are, but if you're not a provider, we're hoping we don't lose all of those people. But how do we engage with them in a way that's honest and doesn't feel like a bait and switch? Like, we're not saying something untruthful, but we don't lose because if you say, "No, I'm sorry, we're not on the plan," you're going to lose 100% of those. Yeah.
Right.
It just makes sense. So how do we be able to say something where we have a chance of saving some of those into the practice? So we tackle those challenging ones, emergencies and cancellations and things like that. So there's lots more to this that we could talk about, but I think that was a good quick overview of those 4 steps and just maybe hopefully a way for managers and administrators to see that this can be fun to do. It can be really a fun process of growing and expanding what you do and your expertise so that you're really seen as a professional, and you're in charge of your career.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that is such a hot topic. I'll ask you just that one, because I get that question all the time when a patient calls with the most difficult question, which is, do you take my insurance, or do you accept my insurance, or are you in my network? Those are all different questions, right?
Yeah.
Now, there are some people out there that teach just get them in, don't necessarily go into the details. And what can happen, correct me if I'm wrong, patients can come in and they're very upset because they feel like they've been misled or lied to in some respect. And then some people say, well, who cares? You got them in.
Right.
And I feel like you and I are on the same page where I'm on the other side. I care a lot when somebody comes in. So can you just speak to that, when it comes to the toughest question that because I'm guessing there's a lot of administrators, team members listening. They're like, Katherine, that's easy for you to say, but you're so good on the phone. But I get barraged with the, do you take my insurance, or are you in my network question? Where do I even start with that using your 4 steps,
I always ask I do a lot of speaking on this subject, and I always ask my audiences, raise your hand if you've ever had a patient that's been with you a long time, maybe 10 years or something, and they love you. They love their hygienist. They love the dentist. They love the office. They love everything about you. They're loyal. Right. And all of a sudden, they get in a new insurance at work. now they have this new plan. They come in, they throw it down on the desk, and they say, "So I got this new insurance at work, and can I use it here?" And you look at it and you think, "Heck no, we're not
Right.
on that plan."
Right.
So you say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, we're not." So have you ever had? So I say, raise your hand if you've ever. So most of the audience will raise their hand every time, and then I say, leave your hand up. If any of those patients, when you told them you were not a provider, however you did that, they ended up staying anyway. They weren't, it just wasn't enough for them to leave. They just were too loyal, too embedded in the practice. And so some hands will stay up. And then I say, and leave your hand up if maybe they left and you were shocked that they would leave and they came back. And so still some hands up, right? So I say, so what you've done is you've proved to yourself, not always, not 100%. You're not going to get 100% of these. You won't. No, I don't care if you were the best administrator on the phone. It is absolutely not reasonable to expect we're going to get 100%. But we will lose 100% if our only answer is no, I'm sorry, we're not on the plan. Okay?
Right.
So the middle ground for me is you've already proven to yourself, if you said yes to my original questions, that if the value of my relationship with your office is high enough, I will step outside of insurance benefits to come to you. The problem on the phone is with a new patient is we don't have that relationship. They haven't been with you they don't love the hygienist yet. So at this point, there is no greater value to offset a greater cost.
Right.
So we have a very short window of time to bridge that gap. But the only reason I say that is I want you to know it's not about money. It's about value. It's a value issue, not a money issue. Because if it was only money, all your patients that got insurance that were, you were out of network on would leave you.
Right.
That's just a good example of if they don't. So here's how. One time I was in an office observing when I was consulting, and I heard a young woman. She was early 20s, and she handled this call better than any experienced coach I've ever heard. And I took a lot of my coaching that I use today from how she handled this call. She was brilliant. So the call comes in, and it's clearly a gentleman who first question out of his mouth is, "Are you on my plan? Do you accept my insurance?" And she said, "Well, what insurance do you have?" And he said, "I have whatever it was, Aetna, PPO." And she said, "Well, I'm really glad you called. We absolutely have a ton of patients who have that same insurance and use it here in our office. And we're really, really comfortable with the details of that insurance. And I wanted to let you know that we're considered what's called an out-of-network provider. Here's how it works in our practice." And so she told him what the difference was. She didn't tell them what they weren't. She told them what they were. She didn't tell them what they couldn't do. She told them how it worked. She didn't focus on how it didn't work. She focused on how it did work. So she said, we're considered an out-of-network provider for that insurance. You absolutely can use it in our practice, and here's how it works. So she's always in the affirmative of it, not saying how it won't work, right? So that was step number one. The next brilliant thing she did was, is there a reason you're looking for a provider on this plan? Why can I ask why you're looking for a dentist on the plan? Mm-hmm. And he said, when he told her it was something to do, it was some aesthetic issue that he wanted. And this happened to be an AACD fellow that he was calling. And so she said, "Oh my," I'm not kidding you, Kirk, this is exactly how she did. She said, "Oh my gosh, if you're a gambler, you should go to Vegas because this is your lucky day." She said, "You happened to call. How'd you find us?" And he said, I don't remember what he said. And she said, "Well, it's your lucky day because of all the dentists in our area. My dentist is the only fully accredited member of the American Academy of Cosmetic Dentists. He is hands down the best cosmetic dentist in this area." She said, "No matter what insurance you have to at least come and meet my doctor. At least come and meet him, let him show you what he can do. And then if you tell us that the finances aren't going to work, then we'll give you a referral to wherever you need to go. But you've got to come meet him." And I was like, okay, well, that is how it's done, friends. That's how it's done. Do you see I think of like the Wizard of Oz. Remember that scene in the Wizard of Oz where all of a sudden Dorothy sees that it's not this big monster. There's actually this little bald guy sitting behind the curtain, and he's nothing to be afraid of, right? So this big scary question of, are you on my plan? And we're going, oh my God, we're not. We're going to lose them. This is a waste of time. And I don't want to lie to them, which I'm going to say, don't lie to them. Don't. Right. People do feel like it's a bait and switch, and it's not a good reflection on you. And you don't have to. Right. What you have to do is peel back that curtain and see what is standing. People aren't sitting around on their couches at night going, I wonder how many dentists are on the Aetna PPO. I think I'll call tomorrow and find out, Right. And they're not sitting around going, I wonder what the price of crowns are these days. I think I'll spend my morning calling around. There's a reason that they're asking those questions. And if we can pull the curtain back and get a look at the reason, now I can promote my practice to that reason. And if I can create enough value in that short amount of time, then I have a chance, right? I have a truthful chance with that patient. And he did schedule, and they did get a good case out of that, So I think there's a lot of ways, and we can go into lots more details at another time, but that's the short version, tell them what you are. Tell them how it works. Tell them what you can do. And then tell them why you'd be a great fit for the reason that they're calling in the first place.
Yeah. Now, if you watch this, you have to put this on pause and write that down, because that was the essence of the whole podcast right there. You'll see why she's so brilliant. In a great behaviorally based restorative practice that really does high quality stuff, you've got to find the reason they called. And her 2 questions help you, and they are questions that are great tools through this whole process. And your framework is beautiful because it's not a mechanical thing. I can see why you're so good at this, and this is fantastic. So thank you so much for sharing all of this wisdom. Now, if I'm watching this, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great. How do I get started? Now, the first thing I'm thinking is I got to have that sheet. Okay, so
good.
How do I get that sheet from you, Katherine? Who do I email, and how do I get it? Because I want one too.
Okay, good. Email info@lionspeak.net.
Okay.
And put VIP phone slip in the subject line, and Peggy will know just what you need, and she will get it to you immediately. Okay, say that address one more time just for our iTunes listeners.
Info@lionspeak, lionspeak.net, not .com, .net. And just put VIP phone slip in the subject line, and we'll send it right to you. It'll be a Microsoft Word, and you can customize it to fit your needs.
You are awesome. And so, as you can see, you guys can see why we love her. Actually, Jerry Gottlieb and Angela Heathman, who are 2 of our coaches, love Katherine. I love this so much. We love
I love them too.
You are awesome. And then if you're watching this and you need some help on the phone, and you take a look at Katherine's programs, they are fantastic. You can also find those on lionspeak.net, where you'll see her brand new website. It is gorgeous. And very well done. And I'm going to have you back for a whole bunch of other things. Katherine, you and I can talk for hours and hours and hours on different things. So if you're watching this, please add it to the feed. What else would you love Katherine to talk about? Add it here, and we'll have her back, and we'll go right into those topics. So Katherine, you stay on for just a second while we say goodbye to everybody else. But if you're watching today, I just want to say thank you for watching. We are crazy grateful. And if you found this particular episode valuable, which I know you did, do me a favor, just hit the share button, share it with all of your friends. We would love that. And keep giving us great suggestions for shows. We'll keep bringing them to you. And until we see you next time, keep watching the Best Practice Show. You guys have a great rest of your day.